Hello and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Ed Wilson, Executive Director for BNI San Diego. Today, we're going to set the stage for what's to come. We are going to be doing a weekly, or hosting rather, a weekly podcast that will be introduced to you each and every week. What are we going to talk about? We're going to be sharing some best practices, announcing changes and updates, both locally and globally from a BNI standpoint. We may do some member, or what I like to call referral partner recognition. Yeah, that might be you. We might be recognizing you on our podcast. We're going to do some industry spotlights. There's so much going on around the world in different businesses, in different industries. We all know the things that are going on right now in the real estate market with housing and prices and all the things that are going on there. There are so many, I can't even think of them all. We might be talking about some books. I've got a couple here, some of my favorites. We've got Dr. Ivan Misner, the founder of BNI. It's his Who's in Your Room, second edition. Phenomenal book. I've taken a ton of notes. We've got Who Not How by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. And then one of my new favorites by Ryan Holiday called The Obstacle is the Way. It's a tiny little book, but holy moly, it's really helped change and morph how I look at obstacles and kind of going through that process. So we may talk about some books and things. We're going to be interviewing individuals both locally here in San Diego, but around the world. We've got people from throughout the US and from other countries that may be joining us on the podcast. Typically, they'll be in the 8 to, let's say, 15-minute range. We're going to keep them short and sweet and to the point, get you some CEUs. And for all of you BNI members or referral partners, you know what CEUs are. But for the rest of us, or for the rest of the individuals that are watching or listening in, CEU stands for Chapter Education Units or Continuing Education Units, right? Because we always want to elevate our business acumen, and we do that by continually learning. One of the things I wanted to talk about today, though, particularly, is how one of our goals, rather, is to be able to elevate you as a referral partner here in BNI, but even more importantly, to elevate your business acumen, who you are as a professional. We're going to look at things like how do we gain better visibility for you? How do we increase your credibility, which ultimately will generate over to profitability. We're going to talk about those things and some of those topics in future weeks. But I wanted to start off with one of my favorite things. All of our chapter meetings, whenever we're doing functions, we start off with our core values. It's who we are as an organization. I'm sure many of you may have one or two or a handful of core values. It's, as a business, it's important to have our core values, or your core values, as long as I can say it. It's your guiding light. It's your true north. It's how you filter things. We actually have 7 of them. We started with 5, and then over the past several years, we've added 2 more. I'm going to walk through them really quick, and then I may come back and touch on 1 or 2. But we've got Giver's Gain, building relationships, lifelong learning, one of my favorites. Traditions plus innovations. I will come back to that one. Positive attitude, accountability, and recognition. So I mentioned the very first one, which is our cornerstone key core value, and that is Giver's Gain. What does that mean? That means whatever we do, we show up to give, knowing that it's going to come back from someplace else. But first and foremost, we show up to give, whatever we're doing. If it's volunteering for someone, if it's a business meeting, whatever we do, we show up to give. It's never a, hey, I'm here, Ed's here, let the referrals flow, let everything, flow towards me. No, when I show up someplace, I want to make sure that I'm adding value to the room and to the people. And we do that by showing up to give. Having that right mindset or heart set, like I love to talk about, is incredibly important. So make sure that you get to know that key core value of ours, and that is Giver's Gain. Traditions plus innovations. I said I was going to touch on this one a little bit. I love this one, and I actually used to work at our global headquarters with Dr. Ivan Meisner and Norm Dominguez, our former CEO. And these are the individuals that put together our core values. And when I was there in the beginning, as I would go through core values and I would be talking to people over the phone or interacting with both executive directors and national directors from around the world, I would always say traditions and innovations. And I kind of go on and kind of talk about it. And one day, Dr. Meisner corrected me and he said, no, Ed, it's not traditions and innovations. It's traditions plus innovations. All right. Our traditions are our foundation. It's who we are as an organization. It's the agenda. It's the things that we do as an organization. But we need to continually add in the innovation. 3 years ago, back in 2020, as a matter of fact, last month in March, it was 3 years ago that we went through this little thing called the pandemic. And in BNI, prior to that, all of our chapters met in person. Well, 3 years ago, we actually had to pivot and move online. And it worked so well that we ended up keeping a part of our online meeting format. So we now have in-person, online, and my favorite, which is our hybrid format. And if you want to know more about that, shoot me an email or be in touch with me and I'll go over that with you and we'll talk a little bit more. But we had to innovate. All that to say, we had to innovate. We're constantly innovating as professionals. We need to make sure that we're staying on the top of our game because guess what? Everybody else out there is innovating. Everybody else is continuing to grow. I'm having trouble with my English today. Continuing to grow. We need to make sure that we're always on top of our game. We have those elements of our traditions, but we want to make sure that we're continually innovating. So traditions plus innovations. And then accountability. There's a word that I love to actually say even next to accountability, and the word is ownership, right? Because it's really about taking ownership of what we do. And we want to make sure that when we're referring to individuals, when we're referring to our referral partners, whether it's in our chapter or people that we get to know or interact with, we want to make sure that they're accountable, right? But more importantly, we want to make sure that they take ownership of what they're doing. When they show up on time or show up when they say they're going to show up, they do what they say they're going to do. All of these things are important, and it comes back to that ownership. And in BNI, because we're a collaborative organization, we have referral partners. It's about that accountability. So I just wanted to touch on some of our core values today. I'm excited to be with you each and every week. I look forward to being able to interview maybe some of you, some other individuals having some terrific topics. We are putting an email in place, and it is going to be podcast@bnisd.com. Podcast with an S, podcast@bnisd.com. If you have questions, if you have thoughts on maybe a show that you'd like to see or a topic that you'd like us to share on, or just some all in all good things to share, maybe even some critiques as well. But we'd love to be able to hear from you. So make sure that you send us those emails. I look forward to being back with you next week with a new topic and maybe even someone to interview. Who knows? In order to know, you're going to have to stay tuned and listen on in or watch next week. Thank you again for being with us for this little bit of time. We look forward to interacting with you over the next weeks, months, and years to come. We hope you have a wonderful day. And again, Ed Wilson from BNI San Diego with our very first podcast. And we're excited again to be here. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a good one.
This episode of the BNI San Diego Podcast has been brought to you by Cruise Productions, a San Diego-based video production company and proud BNI member. You can find us at the intersection where business and creativity meet, or online at cruiseproductionsinc.com.